Hi everyone, in this video we will discuss some of the frequently asked questions or basic questions with their answers from DBMS and SQL. So what is data and how it differs from information? So as you know, data is any raw fact that is recorded. That is called data, and it is very simple, unorganized. It can be stored in a form of numbers, characters, or images in raw form. Okay, so that means any fact that needs to be recorded. If you are not recording it, then it cannot be treated as a data. It can be treated as just a news or message or a fact. But if you are storing it or recording it in a form of numbers, characters, images, or any form, then that is called data. Why you are storing it? Because it needs to be processed. You want to get some information out of this data. So information is what? When a group of data is processed, structured, and organized to make it meaningful and useful, then it becomes information. Got it? Now, for example, you are storing the marks of a student of each subject in each exam for each year. That recorded figure is called data. Now, from this data, if you calculate the average grade of the student in each exam in each year, then that will give you some information about the overall academic progress of this student. Okay, so whatever conclusion you draw from this data, that is called kind of information. Okay, now just take another example. Suppose we are recording the temperature rainfall of a city for every month over a period of year. That is data. That is just a raw fact or figure which is recorded. Now, once you process this data and observe it, and you'll just infer that the climate of this city is like this from this data. So this is called the information. Okay, so there are many uses of data, not just to get information. There is something called data mining is also there. So for this purpose, you are storing or recording some figures or facts, that is called data. Now, what is database and database management system? It's very simple. Database is nothing but a collection of related data. Okay, so if you're storing some related data in a group, in a place, then that is called a database. And this state of data will be used for some purpose. Okay, now DBMS is the software. This is a database management software which is used to manage the database basically. What is managing the database? By using this software, you can create the database and you can just manipulate the data. You can retrieve data from the database. All these things you can do through a software that is called DBMS. And it also provides security to the data. Now, some commonly used DBMS softwares are Oracle, MySQL, MS Access. All these are the examples of DBMS software. And also DBMS is used in many sectors like universities, banks, airlines, hospitals. There they use different kinds of database management system to manage their database. Now, what are the features of DBMS? First of all, it reduces data redundancy. That means it will not allow you to keep duplicate data. So as much possible, it will reduce redundant data in your database. Now it maintains data consistency. Consistency means if multiple copies of the same data is there, then they should match with each other. If they don't match, then you can say the data is inconsistent. So DBMS is responsible for maintaining the data consistency also. Then it also supports data sharing and multi-user transaction processing. Data can be shared across multiple users. It also provides security to the data, and it also supports multi-user environment which allows users to access and use data in parallel. Okay, so these are some of the features of DBMS, and apart from that, there are many other advantages by using DBMS. Now, what is relational data model? A data model basically the structure of the database. So there are different types of data models like hierarchical data model, network data model, but among them relational data model is the most commonly used data model. In this model, the data is arranged in the form of relations. Relations are nothing but tables only. And tables consist of rows and columns. That means data is arranged in a form of rows and columns in a table, where each row is called a tuple and each column is called a field. Okay, and each row stores the data value of one entity for different attributes or fields. For example, in a student relation, let's say there are column names or roll number, name, mark, then each row stores the values of these attributes for each student. And every relation has a relation schema, which is represented like this. First of all, the relation name and the columns which are there in the relation has to be kept within parentheses. Okay, and the number of attributes in a relation is called the degree of a relation, and number of tuples is called the cardinality of the relation. Now, what is SQL? It's very simple. SQL is nothing but the language of databases. That's it. It's a language which is used to deal with a relational database or to work with a relational database. So it provides different types of commands to create, manipulate, manage, update, insert, delete, retrieve. All these operations you can do by using SQL commands. Now the main types of SQL commands are DDL, DML, and TCL. DDL commands are basically used to define the database. These are called data definition language. Like the commands create, alter, drop, all these commands are coming under this category. Now DML stands for data manipulation language, which includes the commands like insert, delete, modify, which are used to manipulate the database. And TCL is the transaction control language, which contains some of the commands which are used to control the transactions. What is the difference between char and varchar type of data? SQL provides two data types for storing character values. One is char and the other is varchar. Char is a fixed length character data type and varchar is a variable length character data type. That means whatever size you will specify for char, it will take that much size only irrespective of the actual length of the data. Let's say for example, if you have specified a data type with a character data type with size 10, but the actual size is let's say 5, then the rest 5 spaces will be occupied with blank spaces to make it 10 bytes or 10 characters. So the length is always fixed. But in case varchar, if you have taken the size as 10 but your actual data is of size 5, then it will take the size as 5 bytes only. Rest of the spaces it will leave. So it is always advisable to use varchar type of data when the actual data size is not known to you. But if you know the actual data size, then you can use character type of data. But always remember whatever size you will specify, your actual data should not exceed that size. Now how to calculate 13 into 15 in SQL? As you know, all the arithmetic calculations can be done by select command or select statement. So you can just write select 13 into 15, then you'll get the output like this. In column form, 13 into 15 will be the heading and the answer will be in the row. But if you want to give some other heading, then you can just keep the heading like this, select 13 into 15 and here I have given the heading as answer. You can give any other heading also. So that will appear as the label or the column name for the answer, for the result. And the value that is 13 into 15 that will appear in a record form or in a row. Okay, so this is how you can do arithmetic calculations on constant values in SQL just by using select command. Now what are super key, candidate key, primary key and alternate key? So to understand that, let us consider this relation, that is student having roll number, name, address, phone number and email as its attributes, okay, or the field names. Now super key is a single column or group of multiple columns that uniquely defines a record. So all possible column combinations that uniquely define a tuple are the super keys. So here in this example, you can see roll number is a column which uniquely defines the rows. So roll number can be a super key. But not just roll number, you can take a combination of fields like roll number if it is associated with any other field like name or address or phone number, then that will also make a super key. That means like here roll number name combination, that is a super key. That means there are no two records who are having the same roll number name value. Okay, so that is also a super key. Similarly, roll number, name, email. This combination is also a super key because there is no two rows are having these three values same. Roll number, name, email combination. It will not be repeated. So like this, you can create any combination of columns. Those are all the super keys. So that can say a set of super keys can be formed for a relation. Now, what is a candidate key? Candidate key is kind of a subset of super key. So the columns which have unique values are the candidate keys. That means these columns have got the candidature. That means they are the possible candidates to become a primary key. Okay, so that's why this is called a candidate key. Okay, so here in this relation, you can see roll number can be a candidate key. Roll number is a candidate key because it is having all unique values. Similarly, phone number is also a candidate key because all phone numbers are unique. And email is also one candidate key because this field will also have all unique values. So those fields which have all unique values and they don't have any null values are the candidate keys. Okay. Now, what is a primary key? Now, out of all these candidate keys, one key is chosen as a primary key. One column is chosen as a primary key. That is chosen by your database administrator or developer. So that particular chosen key is the primary key. Now, the rest of the keys which are left, which are not chosen as primary key from the list of candidate keys, those are the alternate keys. Like here, in this case, let's say roll number is chosen as a primary key. Then the rest of the candidate keys like phone number and email, those are called the secondary keys or the alternate keys. That means these keys are also having the capabilities to become a primary key. So clear? Now, what is foreign key? So foreign key is the key or column which references to primary key column of another table. For example, consider these two relations, department and employee. Department is having all these columns, department ID, department name, and the number of employees in that department. Here, department ID or D underscore ID is the primary key. And consider under table employee. Here, employee ID, employee name, designation, and department ID. These are the column values where this department ID is the foreign key which references the department ID column of department table. That means this department ID of employee table will have its values from department ID of department table only. It cannot have any other value which is not there in the values of DID of department table. Okay, so let's understand this. Let's have a look on this two relations. I've just taken some of the rows. Let's say there is a department, in a department relation, there are three departments having ID D015, D016, D017. Okay, the names and the number of employees. This is your department table. Now the next table is the employee table, which is containing employee ID, employee name, designation, and department ID of that employee. So here, this department ID of employee table references the department ID of department table. That means here it will have only those values for department column. Those are there in the department table. Like here you can see for employee E011, the department ID is D016. This department ID is present in the department table. You can't put any other department ID which is not there in department table. So this is how foreign key works. And one more thing, foreign key columns can have null values. Here you can see employee table. This is having null values for DID. Like let's say there is one employee who doesn't belong to any department. So for him, the department ID can be null in employee table. You can see, so foreign key columns can have null values and duplicate values also. That means there are more than one employee who belong to same department. Then you can put the same department ID for multiple rows. Now, foreign key establishes a relationship between two tables. Here you can see the tables employee and the department. These two are related through this department ID column. So, foreign key establishes a relationship between two tables. Now, next question is, what is a constraint? This is also a very simple one. You know it already. Constraints are nothing but the rules and the restrictions or the conditions that are enforced to regulate what values will be inserted into the columns of a table. Okay. So while inserting the value, it has to check for those constraint or conditions. If it is satisfying, then only the values will be inserted. Otherwise, it will not allow to insert the values in the table. So why this is applied? This is basically used to maintain the accuracy, integrity, and reliability of the data. There are many types of constraints that you can apply. Those are available in SQL. The most commonly used type of constraints are not null constraint. Now, if a column is applied with not null constraint, then it will not allow any null values in the field. Now, similarly, primary key constraint will not allow any duplicate values in that particular column. Now, default constraint is there where you can specify a default value for a column, and when no value is specified, it will take that default value. Like this, there are many types of constraint that you can apply to maintain the integrity of the data. Now, what is primary key constraint and what is primary key? So, primary key constraint is a constraint which states that each row in the table is unique. And primary key is the column or the columns, the set of columns on which the constraint is applied. So primary key is basically the column or the set of columns on which the constraint is applied. Whereas primary key constraint is a constraint which states that each row should be unique in a table. There should not be any duplicate rows. A primary key must have unique values and it must not null. Primary key columns will not allow any null values in it. And there is only one primary key in a table. Okay. And primary key can be applied to a single column or can be applied to a combination of two or more columns. Okay. So in that case, the combination of values in these columns must be unique. So if it is applied to a single column, then it is applied at column label. Then you can see how it is. Create table name, then the particular column name, then along with the column name you just have to write primary key. This is how you can apply column label constraint. That means to a particular single column only you are applying this constraint. But if you are applying a table label, that means the primary key consists of multiple columns, then you can apply like this. First of all, you have to create the table and you have to specify all the column names. And finally, you have to write primary key. Within that, within bracket, you have to write the column names on which you are applying the primary key. Here, SID and branch, these are the two columns which are primary key associated. So this is actually considered as a single column only. That means like SID and branch, these two columns should not have any duplicate values. That means each combination of values for these two columns must be unique. Okay, and here SID and branch, these are called the composite primary key. When a primary key consists of more than one columns, then all the columns are called composite primary key. Okay. Now, is null value the same as zero? Null value means no value or the value is not known or the value is not applicable or a missing value, something like that. But it is not equal to zero. Okay, you can put a null value in a field if the value is not known or the value is not applicable or available. In that case, you can put null. But if you are putting 0, that means 0 represents some value. It cannot be same as null. So 0 or like blank space, space is also considered as some value. So it's not same as null. Okay, like for example, you can see this one, let's say student relation having like attributes roll number, name, stream, and activity. Like for some students, they don't have any activity, so their activity field should be occupied with null. In that case, you can insert null in those places. Okay, so you can see over here the example. A null value cannot be inserted in a field if it is not null constraint. That means if the field is having a not null constraint, then you cannot put null value over there. Now, what is not null constraint and what is default constraint? As you know, not null constraint is a type of constraint which is applied to a field or column to make sure that the column does not have any, cannot have any null values. That means all the fields for this particular column should have some value. You can't keep any null value for this particular field. And default constraint inserts a default value into a column when you specify no value for the column. Just have a look on this example. There is a table EMP having columns EMP number, phone number, and city. And phone number is not null, and city is default value is daily. So we have applied these constraints over here. So here, phone number field is not null. That means you have to put some phone number for all the employees. You can't keep that field empty. And while inserting the values for city, if you don't specify any value for city, then it will take by default as daily. You can just have a look on this insert statement, and you can see it is showing like this. The city value have not entered, but it is taking daily because that is a default value. But if you want to specify some other city, then you have to specify that in the insert statement. Now, when columns value is skipped in an insert command, which value is inserted in the database? You can see, while inserting a record, if you have specified the column name but skipped the value, then in that case it will give you error. Just have a look on this example. This is student relation over here. And insert into student, you have written roll number, name, marks, and grade. And when putting values, you have put only roll number, name, and marks. Grade is not there. But grade column you have just specified in insert command. In that case, it will give you error because column count does not match value count. Okay. But while inserting a record, if you have skipped a column name, then null value will be inserted for that field. But if the field is default constraint, then default value will be inserted in that column. That means if there is some default value you have set for that column, then that value will be placed. Or else if there is no default value, then null will be inserted in that particular field. But if the field is not null constraint, then it will give error. That means you have to give some value if it is not null constraint. Now just have a look on this insert statement. Insert into student, roll number, name, grade, values are 9, let's say Suresh and A. So here you have not specified marks value. So marks it has taken as null. Okay. So this is how it will work. Now what is the SQL command to display list of existing databases? The command is show databases. So this will show you the list of databases existing in your system. Now, what is the SQL command to open or switch to a particular database or to work with a particular database? Then you have to use this particular command, use, then the name of the database which you want to work in or which you want to switch to this particular database. Now, the next question is, which SQL command is used to display the list of tables existing in a database? That means you are inside a database and you want to know what are the tables present in this database, then you have to just use show tables. Show tables will display all the tables which are present in that database. Now next question is to display the structure of a table. That means it will display the name of a table along with the column names, data types, and constraints. For that, it will you have to use this one DESC, then the table name. Here DESC is for describe, then or else you can directly write describe, then table name. It will show you the structure of the table or like the columns and the data types, all these things it will display. Now write SQL statement to display today, the date is current date. Now to display current date, there is a built-in function called CUR date. This function will give you today's system date. So if you just run this like this, select today, the date is, then current date. You have to use select statement over here. Then today, the date is that you have to keep it in a string, then comma, then current date. You can just call it because it's a function, you have to give a parenthesis. So it will display like this. Today, the date is current date, and under that, that will be like a column heading. Then under that, you will get today, the date is, the date will appear. Now, suppose if you want to give some other heading above the date, then you can just write the command like this, select today, the date is current date. After that, you have to just specify any label. Let's say here the label is date. So that will appear as a heading. You can see the output like this. Now write SQL command to add a not null constraint on fees column of student table. Then you can see while creating the table, you can just add the constraint at the time of table creation like this, create table, table name. Within that, you have to specify the column names along with the data types. And where the fees column is there, you can see just after the data type, you just have to write not null. That means that particular column is not null constraint column. But suppose you have, while creating the table, you have not specified the data type, sorry, the constraint. That means the table is already existing and you have just created the table like this. Create table, table name, then just the column names. Here you have not specified the constraint. Then in that case, that means after the creation of the table or for the existing tables, you can use alter modify command to add this not null constraint. Just you have to use like this, alter table, table name, modify, then the column name, data type, then not null. In that case, you can apply not null constraint to a field of an existing table. Now, while using SQL pattern matching, what is the difference between underscore and percent symbol? You can see SQL has a string matching operator called like. This operator is used for comparing character strings. And this operator uses two wildcat characters, that is underscore and percentage. Underscore represents single character to match a pattern from a string, and percent represents zero or more characters to match a pattern from a string. Now let's understand this one. Let's say one table is like this, having two columns, roll number and name, and there are some names you can see. Now suppose if I want to display those names which are starting with S. Okay, so in that case, that means the rest of the characters we don't know, but we just know the first character, that is S. So to replace the multiple characters, we can use percent symbol like this. Select name from student where name like S percent. Okay, percent represents multiple characters, zero or multiple characters. So it will display only those names which are starting with S. You can see the output is like this. Okay, now suppose if I want to display the name of those students whose name is starting with S, and second character can be any character and third character is R, and rest of the characters can be any character. Okay, so you can just use the like operator like this. Select name from student where name like is underscore R percent. Here underscore represents the second character. That means the character is not known to us. For unknown character, we have just used the symbol underscore. And the third character is R. And next percent means the rest of the characters can be anything. So this is how you can use pattern matching, and you can see the output is like this. It is showing these two names which are beginning with S and the third character is R. Now consider a relation schema. It's a relation schema employee having attributes EMP number, name, sales, and commission. And write an update command to increase the commission by 500 of all employees who have achieved sales more than 10,000 and less than 20,000. So you have to use the update command to update the commission value like this. So update table name set commission is equal to commission plus 500 because commission will be increased by 500, where sales between 10,000 and 20,000, where the sales value will be between this range. Okay. Now the next question is to write an update command to increase the commission by 1,000 of all employees who have achieved sales more than 20,000. The same thing, you just have to write update employee set commission is equal to commission plus 1,000, where sales value is more than 20,000. Now here ends the first part of this frequently asked questions from DBMS and SQL. Here we have discussed some of the very basic questions from DBMS and SQL, and these questions will always face in interviews or vivas. And in the next video, we'll discuss some more questions on SQL, some advanced queries and all. And stay tuned for that and do subscribe. Thank you.